You're listening to Free Zone Radio.
For Free Zone Radio, this is With Honors, the Summer Series. Christopher Nolan's movie The Odyssey is the hit of the summer for 2026, and its memes are everywhere. But Homer's story has been around for several thousand years, and it's the foundation of Western lit. Today's audiences didn't all completely fall in love with Nolan's movie. Many objected to changes in casting that seemed to push a progressive agenda they were uncomfortable with. But really, having seen the movie myself, those changes mattered little to nothing in the enjoyment of the film overall. Are audiences today so different from Homer's audience, or from the audiences of the 1990s and 1950s? Our classroom readers are. Are high school classrooms today ready for a translation of Homer's epic, or is that too far above their heads nowadays? And if so, what about the graphic novel by Gareth Hines, or the 2026 movie? Are they useful, suitable, dare I say, literary tools for the high school ELA classroom? As we come to the end of summer break and look ahead to week 1 teaching the Odyssey, my co-teacher Drew Haston and I sit down to discuss exactly that. All right. So we're coming up on the end of summer, my dude.
It's over. It's not on the end of it. It's done.
I was lying. Summer is over and dead. Summer's dead.
Lily Parker, I text her to check in on her. And I was like, you moved in yet? Have you started volleyball practice yet? Let me know if you need anything. And she said, how's your summer going? And I said, Lily, my summer's over. It's done.
Your summer's over. And what will you do for a vacation now, Telemachus? What will you do for a vacation now? Your summer's never coming back. It's all suitors from here on out.
Oh, gosh. And all these beggars.
He really landed that, That meme's been going around and people are saying, like, why does it seem so familiar when he says beggars so hard? And it's almost because it comes across like a slur, the way he lands on it. Somebody get these beggars out of here. He just lands it.
This sounds weird, but I'm happy for Rob Pattinson because when I was in high school, that's when all the Twilights came out.
Oh yeah.
And so he's Edward Cullen to the millennials. And how do you shed that as an actor?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of actors turn down James Bond because they don't want to be like, if you look at Daniel Craig, you're going to be like, that's James Bond.
James Bond.
Pierce Brosnan is the same way. Mark Hamill is always going to be Luke Skywalker. And so how do you shed Edward Cullen? I mean, Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter, right? There are certain actors who have had roles that are bigger than them.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of happy for him because he kind of went through this desert and has kind of come through.
Yeah.
And I don't know him personally. He may be a terrible guy. He doesn't seem like he is, but, I'm just kind of glad to see that he's moved on from that.
Daniel Radcliffe, wait, he was in Lord of the Rings. He played Frodo Baggins.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. We, for my honors class, have spent all summer reading the Odyssey and the Iliad. The Odyssey and the Alchemist. Yeah. My AP kids read The Importance of Being Earnest and The Kite Runner. But really, 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 all of these things tend to be about a journey home and finding who you are and where you're supposed to go. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to have a conversation here at the end of summer as we approach the curriculum about the teachable items that I used for it. For our text, we used Gareth Hines' graphic novel, The Odyssey. Our department has plenty of the paperback copies that are really thick. They're like 3 or 4 inches thick, though. Have you ever read a translation of Homer's Odyssey?
I read the Odyssey. I think I read some of it in Linda Knoll's class.
Oh, yeah.
Because I told you she was that's like one of our catchphrases on Deadman's books is, and everything that's been written after the Odyssey is just an adaptation of the Odyssey.
Right.
And we didn't read a lot. I think we read like 4 books because it's not chapters technically. It's
right.
Like books.
It's in books.
So we just read, I think, 4. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What the Iliad is?
The Iliad's the one with the Trojan War. This is where they spend the first 10 years. They've already been fighting, and it's basically like we're in our 10th year.
Yeah.
What do we do now?
Okay. Because am I mistaken, but is not like some translations are to kind of divide it. The story's kind of divided up in like its own little like set of things.
Yeah.
So we read like one specific set in there.
I wanted to ask a professor at Tennessee Tech, well, like what translation would you personally endorse? Because I know Dr. Laird has hers that she would use.
Yeah.
I didn't want to bring too much to the table, especially since it's summer reading. I did not want to bring too much to the table for sophomores who are just now off their freshman year to take home and read on their own. But the graphic novel seemed pretty manageable, pretty bite-sized for it. So I wanted to spend a little time talking about the teachable merit of a graphic novel. But how do we get around the other teachable text, the hit of 2026, Christopher Nolan's movie version of it?
Yeah.
We are going to do a review of the movie later. We'll do that later.
Yeah.
But this will just be like a little bite-sized pre-taste of that. If you were an English teacher approaching the classroom, you've got the graphic novel version and Christopher Nolan's new movie version. How good or not are these as teachable texts? What about the graphic novel, first of all? Should we use the graphic novel at all in an English classroom, in a high school English classroom?
Well, obviously I think so, because if it wasn't for me, that copy of the Odyssey wouldn't be here.
You and your former co-teacher are the ones that had, that's true. But it's a graphic novel in a high school classroom, and we're all the time assaulted on what's the rigor? What's the rigor? Are you giving them complex? Are you giving them high quality instructional materials? Are you giving them rigorous, complex texts to decode and read?
I think that it's valid because I used it as a pairing with Gatsby, and we used it because we were doing 3 things at once. We were doing that. We were doing the Odyssey, Great Gatsby, and How to Read Literature Like a Professor, but really looking at that journey and kind of examining the chapter there that he presents with his. So I think that it's valid. I think that the kids enjoy it. I think that I don't know, I think I told you this, but I would be like, okay, you need to read pages 41 through 72 today in the graphic novel. And of course they're like, 30 pages. And then they would get done and I would see some just continue to read.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really good way to introduce the story. I think that graphic novels are valuable in the classroom. I don't know if I would use it independently.
What do you mean?
I don't know if I would make it my anchor text necessarily. I think it's good to pair. Like you've got The Alchemist, and I'm assuming that The Alchemist is probably going to be more of your anchor.
I don't know. They're kind of like weighing an equal delight right now, because the Odyssey, as we've said a billion times, is such a foundation to the story of our literature. And The Alchemist, we're both looking at the hero's journey. We're looking at, the return to home, self-awareness. Who are you?
But you can use both equally, because the graphic novel of the Odyssey gives them the story in an understandable way where they understand the concepts that you're about to go into with The Alchemist. Therefore, when I talk about The Alchemist and the journey that's taken place there, I can always reference back to, remember that time Odysseus did this, or remember that time Odysseus heard that, and that's what I'm saying. In that sense, they are on equal footing, but I don't know that you could take The Alchemist away and just say, here, this is what we're going to be reading this next month. That's
actually why I brought The Alchemist in, is because I felt bad about just assigning a graphic novel for summer reading. That's it. I'm glad you mentioned concept, because that's how I see it in my head, is that the graphic novel, the Odyssey, we're looking at it for its conceptualization of the hero's journey and making sure we have a ground floor basis for the Odyssey. But when I look at language, when I'm looking at quotable quotes, when I'm looking at any of those things, we're going to be pulling from The Alchemist.
Well, and also too, I'm thinking in my head though, like if you used Mouse, that's a dense graphic novel. I think that you could probably lean on that if it wasn't banned in our state.
Right. Right.
But I think that you could lean on that and you could use, because it's dense and the artwork, you know, you're getting into that type of thing too. You've got to pay attention to what's going on with some of the artwork, where I think Gareth Hines' adaptation was pretty just straightforward. I think it was
for the most part.
I think it was built for the younger reader. I know that you reference Macbeth so much, and I read Macbeth in my senior class with Linda Knoll, and can't really remember too much of it. And he's got an adaptation of Macbeth, and that's in my cart because I thought I'd like to talk about that one day. And it would be a good way to kind of refresh it and go through and be like, oh yeah, I remember this, and I remember that, and I remember that. So I think that there are probably some graphic novels that are literary, and you're getting into, like I said, the artwork where the artists are trying to lead you visually to, which then that gets into the Christopher Nolan movie, because how much storytelling is told visually, you know, and then that that gets you into how really what we teach in English now needs to look beyond just the page, because the messages and mediums are brought forth to us in different I've already said mediums, but in different mediums. You know, you've got different media that's presented, and I don't know, would it be radical to change the name of the class, do you think?
Okay. So I've seen where there are some classes out there. I saw in a high school teachers Facebook group or an AP Facebook group where teachers have been asking about how does your school approach 11th grade and 12th grade ELA?
Yeah.
Because their school had changed to special topics. They were not just doing American Lit for juniors, British Lit for seniors. They had changed to there's a variety of special topics that all fall under the umbrella of 11th grade or 12th grade English, and you get to sign up for which one. Are you going to take the Detective Lit course? Are you going to take like whatever? And that it aligns with those standard expectations. I think that we get taught a lot, especially in the university level as a teacher candidate, that in the English classroom, ELA classroom, you should definitely offer graphic novels because they are so visual. They're easy to buy into.
Oh, yeah.
Kids often like them. So on the front end, we're there. 2, they can offer a visual complexity to storytelling. I know one of the exercises that I use for bell work is we look at art, and I'm asking you, okay, on the surface, what is this a story about? L2, beyond that, what is this really a story about because of what textual details, the color, the imbalance, the whatever, and then we go off of that. You're making inferences about a visual text that does not have paragraphs or sentences or whatever. So can't you also do that with a well-done graphic novel? But again, last fall, you and I on A Deadman's Books, a great show that everybody should be listening to out there, you and I talked about Brian K. Vaughan's Last Man, Why the Last Man. And we were back and forth on, is this literary?
Yeah.
Because if you're thinking about the level of artwork or the level of writing, I don't know how literary it is. Gareth Hines presents us a really well-done graphic novel, but I don't know how literary it feels, right?
Yeah. I just wonder, you and I talked earlier today about media literacy. I just wonder if you could, because, you know, I don't know, this is probably a radical idea, especially on an English class podcast, but when you call it English language arts, I feel like there is almost like that label that's boxing it in, you know, and that's what I'm saying is in this day and age, media is presented to us in so many different ways, and the skills that are being taught in English class are not just for reading.
Right.
And I just wonder if that would open up kids' minds more to be like, I'm in a media literacy class. I'm not in English class. Like, do you see what I'm saying?
I do. And I'm going to hit you with this too.
You and I talk about this. Words matter, and names matter. And don't tell me names don't give people personalities, right? Don't tell me that doesn't. I think that people, that's why I was really careful to name our kids. It was like
everybody should be.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Well, Your job has changed since last year. You were a freshman English teacher with us, and now you've moved over to be an AV media teacher. You're still in journalism.
Yeah.
You're still in communications, but technically, you live in a different house than we do. You now fall under the subdivision of CTE, Career Tech. We are still in the academic holy house of the main whatever. And I, before that switch happened, went to our administrators and said, look, if this happens, why can we not marry together AV media with English? Because if we're moving ahead and we're being forward-thinking people, why are we not approaching this as communications? We all sit in the same vehicle. You are teaching a journalism class. You are teaching a yearbook preparation class. How is that so different from what we're doing in here? You're working on craft of writing.
Yeah.
You're looking on the product of writing. You're looking at visual as well as text writing. The work that you're going to be doing in your AV media classes. How is that really so different from the foundation of what we're doing in English language arts?
Well, also in my journalism class, I teach them about being non-biased. And, we as humans, that's something we talked about in my classes at Memphis. We as humans are going to always carry some type of bias with us, no matter how unbiased we attempt to be. But that's something that I talk to them about, is how important it is to make sure that you are filtering what's in front of you, and that's something that we always do is it's like Ad Fuentes or something like that. You'll have to go back and correct this or something, but there's a website. It's an independent company, and they make a bell curve on media bias and things like that. Yeah. And so it's really important for me to go over that with them, because they're shocked sometimes at what, there was a particular podcast that some in the class's parents were listening to, and they were like, pull up this podcast. And when I pulled it up, it was like way unreliable, way biased, and they were very surprised, and it just kind of gives them a chance to see that I just want my students, just like you want your English students, to understand how powerful our words are and how powerful our sway is, and that media is the key source to it all. And times have changed. Yeah. You and I obviously would love for more kids to read, obviously, but they're watching videos, and we watch videos, and people are getting their news on TikTok, and they're reading graphic novels and stuff like that. And so I just think it's really important. I don't know why we're on this topic.
Well, because we're evaluating the merits of teaching a graphic novel in a day and age like this. But look at what you and I have done. Yeah. We've brought podcasting to our English classrooms. You're going to tell me that this is not another medium for communication, for writing, articulation, message. So if we're doing graphic novels, podcasting, AV media, I've also gone down the avenue before. Last year, one of my groups was podcasting about video games as a storytelling medium. I think that there's a lot of merit for video games to be able to tell a well-crafted story.
And there are,
But not all video games, and not all graphic novels, and certainly not all podcasts.
No. Well, I guess I'm saying, like, maybe to term an English classroom as English language arts is maybe it's kind of an old way of thinking. Like, do you notice?
Well, then we should take this episode to our administrators.
We should push forward.
I agree.
And maybe we should say, because that's what I'm saying too, is that corners in your standards also, right? Because how taboo is it to watch a movie?
Right.
I brought forth, just for a quick recap lesson, some YouTube videos and an evaluation, and got eviscerated for it. Okay, and maybe they weren't the deepest YouTube videos. I'll hold my hand up and say that, right? But the concepts were there. That's really what I was trying to get them to get. Is like, we've talked about this. Let's go back over. You didn't do well on this. Let's go back over these concepts. Okay, I'm not going to rant too much about that.
Well, here we are again, concept versus depth of literary merit.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, how you were talking about pulling in the movie. I mean, it gives another perspective. That's what I told you yesterday. I don't understand why so many people are upset about Christopher Nolan's adaptation. Everybody on planet Earth has their own adaptation of it. It's his adaptation.
It's been around for 3,000 years.
Right.
Well, that was my second question on here. If we're considering the merit of Gareth Hines' graphic novel, What about Nolan's movie? Is it something that we should be using in the classroom?
I think so, yeah. Because, listen, that just goes back into the same conversation is, why do kids grab on to graphic novels? Okay, a lazy answer is to say, because it's easy and quick to read, right? Well, I know that. But also the artwork is appealing to them, you know? I mean, the research is there. We grab on to and pay more attention to text when photos are with it.
Yeah.
And that goes into why Instagram politically is becoming a more popular form, because you can do pictures and videos,
right?
And people will stop and watch. And the carousels, the research is showing that if you put a carousel, people they want to sit there and look through all those photos. So what I'm saying is, yeah, of course, because what do you and I do? We read a play. What do we do right after that? I'll tell you what, exactly. I look up clips and try to watch it because we want to see it visually. You retain more information when you read, but also how much more important with that information could you tack on to that if you could see it? And also, if I bring in the book, the Odyssey, and it's a dense translation, or if I bring in The Alchemist, which is it's got a little punch to it. It's not a big book, but it can come up and grab you. There are going to be parts, you and I know this as readers, there are going to be parts where we don't really understand. Do you know what I'm saying? And how valuable is that to our learner? Not just to learn, but to enjoy.
Yeah.
If I can see, Odysseus, what are you doing?
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I didn't understand this, but now I'm watching it and I'm like, because here's one thing I was wondering. Why does he tie himself to the mast pole? Like, they're like offering him wax and he's just like, nah.
Oh, man.
Tie me up.
Well, that's a great teachable moment, though, isn't it? Is like, we know this siren song is going to be deadly and alluring. So why would any of us listen to it? Shouldn't we all be waxing up our ears? But Odysseus insists, no, I've got to hear it. What a teachable moment that he, a human being, feels like, I need to dance against the edge of hell. I need to listen to the unlistenable. I want to know what it is, but be restrained and make it, quote unquote, safe.
Like a penance almost.
And it's maddening. It's maddening.
And you and I were talking about, did Nolan read Gareth Hahn's translation there? So I think that when we watched that scene specifically is when I was like, he had to have read that book, because Matt Damon, there's that close up of him screaming, and there's that draw. There's the how do you say that in comic book terms? The panel.
Oh yeah.
There's that panel of Odysseus in the graphic novel where he's tied up and he's just screaming. And also there was that scene too, I'm just thinking this off the top of my head, where Odysseus is leaving Calypso and he's just floating there and he like rolls off of his raft and just floats in the water. That's
Matt Damon did too.
Yeah, that's in Gareth Hahn's Odyssey. And that's another thing too, because that's what we're talking about. I don't want to hear about how do I get kids to buy in when you're giving me a bunch of bull for them to read, right? If I'm not enjoying reading it as someone who reads constantly, you want me to feed this to a 15-year-old and expect them to read it, right? So a part of the retention of this knowledge and this understanding of concepts has to come from enjoyment.
Yeah.
It has to.
Not the scripted curriculum?
No. Listen, do I love reading academic journals? No, not necessarily. But I know, A, why I'm doing it. B, I know that it's like that social media article I sent you. Is all of that fun to read? No. But did I enjoy learning some bits and things? Of course, there's enjoyment there. And that's going to bring people back to the table. Yeah. So if I'm sitting there like, well, I read that. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn and look at my friend Jason and say, do you remember seeing that in the comic book and all that? So,
well, you bring up an interesting segue here. I teach this in my 12th grade class when we look at the foundations of British literacy and literature. You think about things like Beowulf being the earliest work that we have in the English language, Beowulf was not originally written down. It was originally told aloud. And so it had to be memorized and recited and handed down generations through the oral tradition. That's performance. And then finally, 500-600 years later, it gets written down by educated Christian monks who are copying it down into illuminated texts and so on and so on. So earliest forms of literature are performance-based. And then you bring up theater. Well, Shakespeare was also not meant to be something that we all sit in the Globe Theater and let's read a script for, 30 minutes or anything like that. It was meant to be performed. Why? Because the audience is largely illiterate. And so we perform this. Who cares about the literary value of it except for the literate people who are behind the scenes working on the craft and the communication of it? Performance matters. And nowadays we live in the 2020s, and America's greatest export is entertainment, performance. Now, yes, it matters to Jason Crockett and all of us teachers very much that we want our students literate, but we want them to be literate so that they can critique and comment and evaluate. But as far as performance, can't you also be a good audience member? We live in a different society where we can be a good audience member and just enjoy the performance of it and draw inferences about meaning out of it. Just like you were saying with that. For me, when we go to the underworld in that scene, you brought this up today about how good and creepy that is. It's like they sail to a different island. They don't go down steps into an underworld, but it's like an other world. And how it's always caught at dusk. Why dusk? It's never exactly night, but it's not exactly day. So it's like, we're caught between the living and the dead right now. And these characters are coming up like shadows from the ground. You can have so many good conversations about the depiction and characterization and choices and yada, yada from just analyzing a scene in film study. I do think that, yes, at some point we need to go back to Homer's language because I want to talk about his epithets. I want to talk about how he characterizes the wine dark sea. I want to look at the similes. I want to look at the language of it. But can't we do all of these things?
Yeah. Well, I have pulled out of my bag here a copy of Mulebone, which is a play by Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston, and it's kind of famous because these two are really close friends and a huge part of the Harlem Renaissance. And then this play caused them to basically have like a friend breakup, and it was incomplete. And so in this particular edition that I have, it's got a couple of essays to start off with it, and it's talking about how during the Harlem Renaissance, how important it was that the African American community wanted to have black theater. They didn't want it to be, because it was talking about how the vaudeville era had kind of mocked them, right? You had blackface, you had the stereotypes and all of that stuff. So they wanted to kind of shed that, but that was a problem, is because anytime they would present a black play, that was immediately what was in people's mind. But secondly, they just kept pushing the fact, and it was this essay that I was reading was saying that was their number one goal. Wasn't books or poems or novels. Their number one goal was to get a prominent theater movement, and it was talking about how that defined a culture. Yeah. And I pulled this out because I wanted to read this to you. This is James Weldon Johnson. It's the preface to his book of American Negro Poetry. He says, a people may be great through many means, but there is one by which its greatness is recognized and acknowledged. The final measure of the greatness of all peoples is the amount and standard of the literature and art they produced. The world does not know that a people is great until that people produces great literature and art. No people that has produced great literature and art has ever been looked upon by the world as distinctly inferior. And so they had the literature part, right? You've got Langston Hughes, and he's writing this poetry, and it's like inspired by the blues, and so you've got like this jazz blues mix, and it's just dripping with black culture, right? And then you've got Zora Neale Hurston, who comes along, and she's cranking out these awesome short stories and novels, and it's got the vernacular in it, and it's just, like I said, it's dripping with Black culture. And so they're like, we got the literature, but we don't have that like final piece of art right here that we need. We got to get this play. And so when these two got together, they were talking about how everybody was like, it's happening. It's happening, you know, and and that's something that they talk about is how it really set back. They think that they're still feeling the effects of them breaking apart. I bring all that up to say, for us, theater is important, but was written. They attempted Mulebone in the late 30s. The Hollywood was relatively new to the scene then, you know. I mean, I think that plays and theater is important, and I've enjoyed the plays that we've been going to, you know. But for us in this day and age, and for our children, our theater and form of art is film.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
It is film, and so that's why it's important to show these things. You know, I'm not gonna show my class. Well, I say that, but I have Nacho Libre, even though it's one of my favorite movies. But I might show them Interstellar. And I might show them the Odyssey, or I might show them No Country for Old Men, you know, because it's just like with any form of art. There is expression, and there is depth, and you've got your Van Goghs, and you've got your Picassos, and then you got your Hobby Lobby. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Like you've got your Lord
AI
of the
generated.
Rings, and you've got your Narnia, and then you got your Harry Potter. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like every form of art has its different levels and depth, and that's what I'm saying. Going back to, let's change the name of this class.
Well,
because it all goes together. It's all together. The strategies and the things that we teach, and that's what that's what I try to tell my kids at the beginning of every year. That I won't tell them this year is, don't think of this as a class of teaching you how to read. This is a class that anything that I teach you, you can apply to anything.
Yeah.
Like this is one of the most, this is one of the more relevant classes you'll ever take. You know?
It is.
Because, I mean, I love my math teachers. There's one of my favorite departments here. You know, some of my good friends are there. But do I use math every day? I do not. I don't use Pythagorean's theorem, and I can't even remember all the stuff, slope and all that stuff. I don't use it, but I do read every day, and I do communicate every day. And last thing, because I really went on a rant there, we process more information in one day. That's what that guy said on that podcast we listened to, and I've read that in some of these academic journals. We process more information in one day than our ancestors did in a year or more. And so if you don't know how to examine what's being thrown at you, you're going to be swallowed up.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
I'm really glad that you brought that comment up out of this preface, because it was immediately leading me down another West Wing tangent. In an episode of West Wing called Gone Quiet, one of the White House staffers is having to defend funding for the arts, like the NEA and everything. He's having to defend the funding for the arts against a staffer who says, well, you've got all of these different artworks like this where somebody, I don't know, vomits onto a canvas. How is that art? Why are we giving them a federal grant? And then this one. Well, it's not just about that one, because if you come after them, you're also going to be coming after Arthur Miller, and you're going to be coming after Julia Child, and you're going to be coming after so-and-so. So he defends the notion that, you know, you're saying taxpayers should only have to fund the things that they like. And we live in a society that is very critical of things. Well, I don't know that I like my child reading that. I don't know that I like, well, you know, I don't know where you get the idea that taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for things which they disapprove. He says lots of them don't like tanks. Even more of them don't like Congress. And they still have to pay for those things. You know, he says that the historical peaks of human achievement go hand in hand with their art. That the age of Pericles is the age of Phidias, and the age of Elizabeth is also the age of Shakespeare. Like, you have all of these human achievements that are hand in hand with our artistic expressions. So you're sitting in the middle of an age where you're like, I don't think my child should be reading Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. I've had parents and pastors go to our superintendent about, I don't think Jason Crockett should be teaching this quote unquote trash. how dare we stand here in the middle of our naive human perspective and say that works of art are trash? I say all of that. I understand where we're coming from, but at the same time, we are humans with such a limited scope of where we are. And I think oftentimes we speak out of fear and not out of awareness. How many of you who are critiquing The Handmaid's Tale actually read it before going to your superintendent and saying, they got to get that out of there? How many of you on the school board in whatever county actually read Mouse before saying, veto it, get it out of there? How many of you in Putnam County have actually read these materials that you're going to the Putnam County Library and saying, how dare they put these on the, like, we are speaking out of a place of fear and not awareness.
Well, that even goes into what we're talking about. How many people have we seen complaining about Nolan's adaptation?
Exactly.
That it's not realistic.
That's where I'm coming
That it's not faithful. That Achilles is in it. Achilles is not even in the Odyssey.
Right.
You know, like you don't even know what you're talking about. You've not even read the Odyssey.
They heard that Elliot Page is in it, and so immediately the red flags went up. Whatever you think about Elliot Page, whatever I think about transgenderism, off the table right now, we're watching a video.
Well, but also like don't. You just can't come to the table if you've not read it.
Right.
You just can't come to the table if you've not read it. And that's, I mean, us saying this is never going to stop that. But, and don't tell me I don't have time to read. Yes, you do. Because I guarantee you sit at home for 2 or 3 hours on your TikTok scrolling. Yes, you do. That's the thing that I discovered. When I talk to friends and tell them, you know, I read about a book a week or 2 books a week, and they're like, how do you have time to do that? You got 3 kids and stuff like that. That's what I tell them. I put my phone down.
Yeah.
I put my phone down and I decided that I'm going to do something that actually like enhances my brain and not detracts from it, you know? So I just, you know,
instead of speaking from a place of fear, watch it / read it and then come.
And then if you have, you know, it's kind of like with Hillis when we talked to him about him not liking the Odyssey. That's what I said. Like, you know, his gripes were with the cinematography, and his gripes were with I wanted more gods and fantasticism, you know? And so it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll hear those arguments, you know, I'll listen to those arguments. But if you're mad because Lupita's Helen of Troy, it's like Seth Meyers said, Helen of Troy, the lore says she hatched from an egg because Zeus made love with a swan, you know, and you're mad
that she's played by a black woman.
Right. So don't come to the table just yet. I would love to. You and I both, that's one reason we podcast is because we would love to talk about, we would love to sit here and think about the nuance and to think about and to hear what you have to say.
Room for nuance.
I would love to hear it. I would love to hear it, but I want to know that you know what you're talking about.
Well, you and I also had our own criticisms of it, which we'll talk about in a later episode. But we read it, we watched it, we come to the table informed and can make a judgment about it there.
Right. And I can, that's what I was telling you. Like, I'm kind of glad we didn't podcast immediately after it because the rest of that day is so long that I digested it.
Yeah.
But that made it more enjoyable because I was like, oh, yeah, I remember.
But isn't that what you're supposed to do after a work of art? Like, I've told Hannah this, that after I read a book, I am not immediately going to Goodreads to give it a score because after I percolate with it for a bit, my score is different.
Yeah.
Like, we all know, my example is I read Project Hail Mary and gave it a 3 stars. But after I spent some time with it and after I went through it, whatever, that book is a 5-star. What am I thinking of? I rushed and I needed some time to sit back and think about it.
I know the world is busy. I just want to say this. I know the world is busy and I know that I'm busy and I know how easy it is to grab your phone. I don't want to seem critical because I do that too, you know, like.
Yeah, but I think we get too deep.
That's what I was going to say is like.
And I'm guilty of that too.
For all the damage that we think that these books might be doing, and the Odyssey is not really one of those. The movie, for some reason, has been. But for all the damage that we might think that these are doing, like, I think that, I don't know, man, the research is just like more and more is coming out, and it's just like not good.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like the effects that doom scrolling is having on our minds is just not good. And
Right.
It's just, I get it though. You know, I'm not, I'm sitting here saying, come to the table, but read. And then if you want to criticize, then I'm here to hear you out.
Yeah.
I'm not throwing a stone at you because I'm guilty of it too. You know, I'm guilty of coming home and scrolling
But we're not locked into hours and days of it. We're really not, because if we were, how did we have time to read the things that we did read this summer?
Yeah.
I would agree with this, that if we're being cautious about the message that's being served to our children, we're being good moral critics and thinking about that. Okay. But moral criticism doesn't start and end with, did Christopher Nolan cast a transgender person or a black person in this movie? Like, moral criticism also needs to extend into other aspects of our lives. What are we allowing our children to watch on TikTok? What are we allowing to do on whatever situation? Every culture sees through a different lens, and every printing of the Odyssey is going to be a new translation. Every production of Shakespeare is going to be a new quote-unquote translation. So when I review this graphic novel with my class, or when I review Christopher Nolan's movie with my class, what do you think, what message they seem to be promoting to modern-day audiences? Let's just take that one at a time. What about the graphic novel version of it? What message do you think a graphic novel version of the Odyssey is trying to promote?
The graphic novel, I feel like, focuses more on Odysseus's journey. The movie would do like little bits and pieces with Calypso where he's trying to remember. But from the get-go in the graphic novel, Athena comes as mentor and visits with Telemachus, and then they go on their journey, and then immediately, was it Athena or who?
It was.
Was it Athena that flew to
correct.
Calypso and was like, "You've got to let him go." And then it was like 2 pages, and then Odysseus is gone. You know, and he didn't really leave for home until the end of the movie.
If we're going to criticize, you want to criticize a transgender person being cast as whatever. You want to criticize a black woman being cast as Helena of Troy. I don't hear anybody criticizing Odysseus living for 10 years with another woman and yet going, "Oh, I need to get home to my wife. Really?
Give me some more of that lotus.
Yeah. I don't hear any criticisms about that. In the text, he also spends a year with Circe, and they have a child together.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And he spends years with Calypso. I agree that there is a little bit of sorcery involved, but still, Odysseus is plenty of times making bad choices. And what, we're casting him as a faultless husband? I don't think so. Anyway.
Well, yeah. I think that it focuses more on the journey, the journey.
The journey.
I think the graphic novel is more of a, what do you think?
So in my reading of it this year, I kept coming up on how many feasts there were.
Oh, yeah.
Every time Telemachus lands somewhere, or every time Odysseus lands somewhere, they always say, "Oh, well, come on in, let's eat. And then afterward, tell us who you are, where you're from." They don't want to know it up front. They want to feed you first. And I kept writing that down as a guy who knew very little about anything. Why feast first? Like, why the hospitality? Oh, it's hospitality. Oh, Southern hospitality. Oh, we're supposed to be way more hospitable. I don't care who your name is. I don't care your background. I don't care what church you go to. I don't care what color you are. I need to be hospitable first, and then we can talk about all the other things. And then when I got to the movie, you and I talked about this too. You noticed that there seemed to be Christian overtones to this, and you can't escape the whole law of Zeus. But the law of Zeus is hospitality and treating others as you would be treated.
That was the thing right there.
You never know if it's a God in disguise.
And which is from the Bible.
Because Christ says, "Whatever you have done for the least of them, you have done for me."
I don't know Zeus's law. I don't know if that's really Zeus's law, but when they kept referring to that, I thought, man, like you were like pasting this on for every one of us to see. Yeah.
It made me think, like, we see these things through the lens of culture. And in America in 2026, with Christopher Nolan doing this, that's an American production of Odyssey. But what if the Odyssey had been produced in the 1990s by a communist China that was ascendant into capitalism. It wasn't there yet. It wasn't quite into capitalism yet, but it was about to. What does a communist retelling of the Odyssey look like? What does
Odysseus' master? Would it not? Do you think like it would be?
See, this is such a great, I'm going to have these conversations with class about literary lenses.
Yeah.
And if you think through the lens of what does a communist attack on literature look like?
Yeah.
It's very concerned about the production of work, the fairness or unfairness of privilege versus sweat of labor.
Of like a great leader.
Of leadership versus who's being exploited, who's being, tasked with doing this. I think a communist retelling of it, the state of Tennessee is going to flag me now of, look, he's teaching communism. A communist lens is not going to be advocating that communism is anything. It's going to be asking questions about, well, what about Odysseus's men? They're doing all the work for their master Odysseus, and they're the ones doing all the dying, and he's the one doing all the living and surviving. Where's the fairness in that?
Well, I think with a totalitarian government like you're talking about, though, I feel like that it would make Odysseus be so graceful.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have granted you this work for your benefit. Yeah. Not for my benefit.
There's so many different lenses that are out there. A feminist lens is going to be looking at the story through Penelope's eyes, through Circe's eyes, through Calypso's eyes, which I do think Nolan's story gives credence to.
But I've seen people criticize that.
I know, a very male-dominated society that you and I have had conversations about how more and more and more, a lot of these critics are rooted in this conservative, attacking woke America, trad, whatever.
Yeah. But the one that I saw was I can't think of her name right now. She wrote the translation and she wrote the big article about it. And she was, it's hard not to laugh about it because she was like, and he made Penelope just seem like this waiting wife. Like, I have to wait for Odysseus. And it's like,
that's what she does, though. Penelope is the faithful wife,
Right, yeah. So it was like, come on now.
We also can read through a moral critic lens. We can read through a lot of things, Christian humanist lens. There's so many different good ones.
To me, you were talking about the hospitality, and that was something that jumped out to me with the movie, was that there was like a lot of Christian undertones, and I don't know Christopher Nolan's beliefs, but I don't know. To me, it kind of seemed like come on, guys, we got to remember who we are.
Yes.
It really did. Like, he's one of us saying, come on.
A society that has forgotten itself and is on the verge of extinction from the quote unquote sea peoples, but really, 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 we
forgot who we are.
Bringing about our own doom and destruction.
So I don't know Nolan's beliefs, but it almost made me think that he's with us because he was saying it. To me, felt like someone saying, "Come on, you can do better. We can do better."
Right.
That jumped out to me. But another thing that jumped out to me a lot was how many mistakes Odysseus made.
Yeah.
Like, that was really a focus, was how many mistakes Odysseus made in the graphic novel. And that was one of the lady's critiques, was that Odysseus is this great strategist. He's supposed to be this great strategist. And in the graphic novel, he sort of is. He's kind of like, you do this and you did this and we'll get here and all this stuff. And it just so happens that Odysseus is the last man standing because of the fault of his crew, right?
Right.
Which that might be a communistic lens too, like a totalitarian type thing. But Nolan's was definitely like, I love the part where they land on Circe's island and Odysseus is getting ready, and the guy comes up and he's like, we want you to stay here, because you could tell that they had finally determined, like, Odysseus is the reason we keep running into these things. And he says, is this a mutiny? And he goes, if you want it to be. And I was like, they're really focusing on like a flawed Odysseus, which I like.
I agree.
This author did not like that.
But I think Homer also I think Homer also gives credence to that Odysseus is a flawed person. I get that he's the clever, sly strategist, but at the same time, there's something bad that goes along in a person's character if you're sneaky, right? And his sneakiness doesn't come out on top every single time. That Odysseus, if he weren't making these flaws, would have gotten home way sooner. It's that we're punished for our tragic actions.
And he's almost punished for his pride too.
Yes.
Because he could have followed Agamemnon home.
Right.
And when he runs into Agamemnon in Hades, that's the first thing he thinks of. He goes, you shipwrecked. And Agamemnon's like, nah, dude, my wife killed me when I got home. It's like, and so you can kind of see Odysseus like, oh man, if I would have followed him, I would not have been in this situation, because he says, I followed Agamemnon long enough. And part of you is kind of like, heck yeah, that's right. Like, you shouldn't even be in this war. And there's that good scene with him and Penelope where he's kind of saying like, I have to do this. Like, I'm being forced to do this. This is the only path forward. And so it was good as an audience member to see Odysseus kind of say, I don't need this guy right now. I'm shaking him off. We're going the other way. But then also you get that moment to where it was like, Odysseus, your pride kind of got you here, and it just continues and builds and builds and builds.
It gives us an opportunity to consider critical lenses. It gives us an opportunity to consider modern day messages. And I think that there's a lot of things that you can do with these. We don't just have to be confined to whatever the scripted curriculum says. This is the high quality instructional material. We are educated experts. We are people who are reasonable and balanced. You should be able to go through and think, what's going to be best for my class?
Here's my challenge to that. If I came in on one day of your class and you were reading from the graphic novel,
yes,
like, I've chosen today to read from the graphic novel. We're going to talk about it. Just do kind of something like what happened here.
Yeah.
If I came in on that day, I would be like, what are you doing?
Okay. Well, I have two counterpoints to that. Number one, we do not spend 72 minutes reading out loud from anything, graphic novel, Shakespeare, whatever. Two, if you're my administrator and you're only coming by one day to see a snapshot of 5 minutes what I do in my class, what do you really know is going on in my class?
Well, that's what I guess that's kind of what I'm saying.
Be involved. Get out of your office. Be involved.
If I stay and it's like, you and I both know there are those lot days, where, we're going to read the graphic novel and we're going to talk about it after we read it. And then I'm going to have you guys kind of write about like what you observed and maybe look at, how can you pull this from The Alchemist? Okay.
Yeah.
And if I came in on that class specifically, I'm probably going to be like, this doesn't meet the team's rubric. Like, what are you doing?
I would say you need to be adaptable and
then you would, it would be easy for me to say, this is not high quality instruction material. This is not what Engage New York is saying. You know what I'm saying? But that's where the high quality instruction material is because this is a part of a greater whole.
Yeah.
This is a part of a greater whole. Like today is this, it's just... It's just like when I was coaching soccer, we had to pull a program that had not been winning and we wanted them to be winners. Every day was not rigor. Right. There were some days where we sat and we watched film or there were days where we sat and ate pizza and watched a soccer game because those little bits are necessary. Yeah. It's necessary.
I agree.
And so I would argue that all of that as a whole, if I look at it as a whole, I can say, there is some good stuff right here.
Well, I'm 53 weeks into a year back in the weight room of lifting weights and all of that. And some days are for heavy lifting and some days are rest days.
Some days are for maintenance.
And some days are for maintenance and some days are for whatever. So if an administrator or a parent is only coming in and seeing a single snapshot of anything, do they really have a good perspective of what goes on in my room? And I'm always happy to sit down and have a conversation with any of them and say, I understand that it looks like I'm just reading a comic book today. Here's what's going on in the class. And if you stay for longer, you're going to see this happen. Pull up a chair, get a book, and participate in this. And I'm happy to show you, here's what's really going on.
Or like, this is the doorstep for what's happening tomorrow.
Right.
Come tomorrow. Or this is the doorstep for, this is step one and we've got 5 steps this week. Come on step 5, come to step 1, but then come on step 5 and see what happens. Which I know that we're supposed to put in our lesson plan, how it connects to future stuff.
Yeah.
But
Still, I'm happy to have them come by anytime. Yeah. Hey, you know what? You want to see what the kids are really acting like? Come on by, pull up a chair. I would love to have another set of eyes on them. Come on in.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you were thinking about the text in the movie before we go. Like, I have so many lesson ideas that I think I may just do separate episodes about these. Like, I have lessons for a film study. I have lessons for like a project with this. I have a lot of different ideas this year. But if you're going to evaluate the graphic novel, not just a 1 to 5, because we talk on your show a lot, like, what's your Goodreads score of this and everything? What's your Psycho score?
Right.
What if you were having to rate the graphic novel for its entertainment value? 1 to 5.
For entertainment value, I'd give it a 4.
A 4.
Yeah.
What about literary faithfulness?
Now, I'm afraid to rate that because I'm not so familiar with the original.
I'm somewhere like a 3 to a 4.
Okay.
What about the classroom usefulness of the graphic novel? 1 to 5.
Like usefulness? 5.
5.
Yeah.
What about as a replacement for reading Homer?
Ooh.
Because what you said earlier was we shouldn't be just using this as the anchor text.
Well, no, you're
doing
exactly right. I'm going to say, are you saying like this is the anchor text? Oh, a 2.
All right.
Maybe less than that.
Now flip the other side of it.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan's movie.
Okay.
Entertainment value, 1 to 5.
5.
Ah.
Wait.
No,
Can I give halves?
But what you said was 5.
Okay.
You don't like me to pick 5s on those.
I know. Let me
5.5s.
Let me just break this down really fast. I am a busy person, which has caused my mind to be very active. And there were times in that movie where I was kind of like, is it time to go yet? Do you know what I'm saying? There were times where I was like, this is really slow.
Me too.
But it's like I said, when I got home, because I had read the story, I was like, oh, he did really good with that.
Right.
And I was like, oh yeah, that was from the book, or that was from my graphic novel. Like that was like almost identical to that. Was really cool. And then I was like, oh, that was cool. Yeah. So I'm torn. That's why I say like I don't like giving halves, but that's why I would almost give like a 4.5 because at the movie at the time, I would say 4.
That's like when I was thinking about Abolition of Man. At the reading of, it's like a 2. But man, the merit to it beyond that, total 5.
I've recommended it to people, and I've and you know this, I'm not a movie guy in a sense. I love movies when they're legit like this one, but I'm not just going to sit down and watch a movie for fun. And because I would rather read, or I've got some writing to do, or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But I've been like dropping hints to Mary Beth, like, you know, if you wanted to go watch the Odyssey, I'd go watch it with you. But also I told her we've got to block 5 hours of our day.
Oh my gosh, for real. What about its literary faithfulness, you think? 1 to 5 for the movie. How faithful
4.
to the story? Probably a 4.
I think a 4 because you know, Hillis was talking about how he wished that there were like more like physical gods there.
Because Homer does include.
Yeah. And I like the subtlety and that's what I was telling him because he said, I like fantastic. And I was like, I like grounded, you know, which is one reason why I think when I tell people I don't like the Marvel movies, but then I tell them I like Lord of the Rings, they're like, wait a minute, you know, because to me, Lord of the Rings is kind of grounded in, because Tolkien's kind of like, it's kind of like at the beginning of the movie when it was like in an age of magic. That's kind of what Tolkien's doing in a sense, you know? So I like the ground. I liked it. Yeah.
What about the movie's classroom usefulness? 1 to 5.
Am I pairing it with something?
Sure. This is going to be part of a whole unit study.
5. If you're reading the Odyssey, it's a 5 because I'm just thinking here, like, how much enjoyment and how much of a punch you could throw if you did the Odyssey. And The Alchemist is so close to the Odyssey, you know? And then you got Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
And then you've got this, which is the Odyssey. Like, oh my gosh, because then I've got text that I can compare, and then I've got films that I can compare.
Yeah.
And not only is it just like me, like, well, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is the Odyssey, guys. I could be like, no, this is the Odyssey, right? Like, this is the Odyssey, and let's look at this. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I'm just thinking here, in the hands of someone like you, gosh, man, what a freaking class that would be.
Well, we'll find out. We'll find out because we're coming up on it. Summer Vacation is dead. We have left it with blind Tiresias and the shades of Agamemnon and the others. And we basically told Summer Vacation.
We've taken the token.
We've taken the token and said, give this to sign on.
Yeah.
So I'm sending you back with your shame.
I was say we're here to remind fall of its shame.
Oh, God.
Are you gonna pull, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
I don't know. I don't know. Again, as I close out here, I would tell anybody, I don't know what your classroom looks like. I'm not here to be the judge of everything. I don't imagine any real teacher is just sitting there and showing 85-minute movies day after day after day.
Well, and that's not what I'm saying either.
Right. If we're doing a film study, we're looking at sections of it. I do use Interstellar. At the end of senior year, I do a film study with Christopher Nolan's Interstellar.
Yeah.
And we go through film techniques. We do like different activities. And then I do take chunks of the classroom over the next 3 or 4 days, or we look at chunks of the movie. But even then, it's not 85 minutes. Because we also need to do our analysis. We need to do our conversations and things.
I think that it's fun to watch it in parts like that, and then when they worked hard to give them a day where it's like, all right, let's watch this whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and then they can put all the pieces together.
I just don't know if, and to be true about it, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou might resonate more with my Tennessee kids in here. But at the same time, there's more cussers in the Coen Brothers movie than there was in Nolan's movie.
I was actually, I like Oppenheimer a lot.
Yeah.
But it's got some
It had a couple of
adult scenes in it and stuff. And honestly, we say all this, and so before you judge me, I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to go watch this if it's got nudity in it, you know, because I don't feel like that's respectful to my wife. And so I was like, I don't know if I want to go watch this if it's got nudity in it. And I kind of went into it blind and was pleasantly surprised, you know, which Nolan typically doesn't have that in his stuff. But I was just kind of like, okay, yeah. And that's what I told Mary Beth. I said, really, the only things, I said, it had guys getting stabbed and stuff. And I told her, I said, but even that wasn't graphic.
There was a scene where it's when he's getting ready to leave Penelope that they get intimate, but it cuts off before anything happens.
Right.
And then,
I wouldn't even say that that's a love scene.
Right.
Yeah.
When he's on Circe's Island, he shoots the deer that turns into a guy with lots of cake.
I forgot about that.
He's all caked up laying.
I forgot about that.
But other than that, I'll say this
whatever
too.
With that.
I agree. Yeah. But see, that's what I'm saying is from my perspective, whatever. Because when I go to a museum and I see these statues of Zeus or whatever, I see David over here. There's plenty of times that these characters are drawn in their human nudity. We're looking at the human figure. And I know so many people, I know so many Americans who go, ugh, I can't believe they'd show that. I think that comes from this very traditional conservative corner of America that's like, oh, you can't show that. You didn't feel comfortable going to watch Oppenheimer because you thought that was disrespectful to your wife. Jason Crockett, on the other hand, was like, it's like what in the museum? I see a statue of Aphrodite. I'm also not looking at that statue going, oh my gosh. I'm not great Googling. I'm not looking at that statue for anything. And I wasn't watching the Oppenheimer movie thinking, oh, wow. And that never came into my mind. So I'm looking at it through a different lens. And what a great opportunity to teach kids.
Yeah.
And this one doesn't have, I really don't think this has anything offensive other than violence.
And that's what, you and I talked about Braveheart earlier today. That's way more graphic than the Odyssey. So if you, or, like Saving Private Ryan, way more graphic. So, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, if you want to criticize the movie, that's fine, but please watch it first,
Maybe we have to do another analysis of this where we can do a Deadman at the movies, but also do a lesson where it's like a Christian humanist view of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, where we look at the moral critic judging what are we advocating, what are we presenting.
Well, and I'll say that. I know you're trying to close up, and I'll say this really quick. If I don't want to seem critical because, I just mentioned about my hesitancy for things like that. But also, I'm very hesitant with what my kids watch. I'm very protective for what my kids watch.
Your kids are young.
Well,
that's natural.
Right. And it's I've told you, I really want to experience Lord of the Rings with them.
Yeah.
But I'm still just I don't think you're ready for that. And of course, they argue with me about it. But I am on the side of you parents if you're skeptical. Like, I'm on the side, but here's kind of a difference in things is if it's like K-pop Demon Hunter. Hazel's 4. She wants to watch K-pop Demon Hunter. And I'm kind of like, I don't know about that. You know,
I think the name throws people off.
It does.
Yeah.
I asked some friends about it, and some of them were like, yeah, we're fine with it. And some were like, no, we don't let ours watch it. And so I watched some parts, and there were some things that I was like, she's not ready for this. Like, she's not ready to understand like what's going on. You know what I'm saying? So we were like, no. So for me, that's what I'm saying is like, I at least gave it a chance first, but I did it. If you have a problem with the Odyssey, or if you have a problem with this, well, let's check it out first. You can protect them from it, and then kind of, okay, you're good to go, right? Because I understand. So I'm just saying out there, I don't want to seem critical in that I'm criticizing.
Yeah.
Because I'm with you, right?
I'm also not the guy over here advocating, hey, throw your kid, let's go watch Fight Club. Hey, you want to go watch Jaws?
Right.
Hey, you want to watch Cujo? I don't want to be that guy. I just don't want this trend in America where we're speaking out of fear and ignorance, and I don't want my baby doing. But you're also okay with that baby getting on TikTok or hanging out wherever. I don't want to be hypocrites about it.
That's what I was about to say is, as a Christian English teacher in Tennessee, I see all the time online about how we're liberally indoctrinating and stuff like that. And I can tell you that we're not, you know, and I'm not going to get into all that. But as an English Christian teacher in Tennessee, I am more concerned with, I can't get my parents to stop letting my kids watch YouTube. I'm more concerned with what they would be observing on their phones than what they would be intaking in class.
Yeah.
Right. That's just how I would say it.
Ooh, that's us waxing up our kids' ears before the sirens. That's us. That's us. But what a great metaphor to teach. But that's true. That's what we're talking about here. I'm much more concerned about what they might be interacting with than something.
And that would be my warning is that, man, I watched a sermon about this. Clean your room, right? Clean your room first. And, you know, that's what the guy was saying. He's like, when I tell my kids to pick up, they'll be like, well, what about your room? And I can't come back with them because my room's messy. And he says, clean your room first, you know? And so clean your room. Like, watch the phones, watch the TikToks, right? Like, watch the YouTubes. And I'm not being critical. I'm just saying I'm in the same boat with you. I understand, but I also would encourage you to go watch the Odyssey. I had a good time. I enjoyed it. It wasn't that bad. If you got a problem with Elliot Page, right? I mean,
that's between you and God and Elliot Page.
But guess what?
Elliot Page is still going to do what?
Well, Elliot Page is only in it for 2 minutes.
Right.
it's really kind of like that's it, you know. So I had a good time. I would encourage you to go watch it and read the Odyssey. And I don't know where I'm going with this. So this is Drew Haston signing off.
I know where we're going is right back to the classroom with you. Back to the pits with you. Back to the pits. Get back into that lesson planning. Back to that bus duty. Have you put your grades in? Have you taken your attendance? With Honors is a Free Zone radio production, created here in Sparta, Tennessee. Thanks for spending your summer with us on the radio. If you enjoyed this content, please give us a like, share the link with someone you know, or give us a 5-star rating, and hit that subscribe button for more. Word of mouth might be the best advertising, but clicking like and subscribe really does help keep us afloat and visible in all the platforms. And we want to keep working to bring you even more episodes next season. Stick with us for the big summer read of 2026, The Lord of the Rings. We're taking the book chunk by chunk, volume by volume this summer, starting with The Fellowship of the Ring. Read along with us. Send us all your thoughts and questions, and let us know if you want to be on the show too. And go listen to this week's episodes from our other show, Second Stage. and our brother podcast, A Dead Man's Books. They make for great listening while you're tanning by the pool, or mowing the yard, or driving on that 8-hour family trip. You can find all our shows here on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to great content.
Hey everyone, my name is Drew, and I want to talk to you about my show, A Deadman's Books. The show was created with the mindset of whenever I pass away, as morbidly as that sounds, that my children would inherit my books, and of all the things that I'm going to pass down to them, I think that that's the one thing that I want them to make sure that they keep and go through on their own time, but I want to be there next to them whenever they read these things. And so I created a podcast so that they could go back and listen to me and my friends and other people as we read through these books and what we had to think about it. But it's grown to so much more. We've got authors we interview. We talk about everyday life. We talk about how literature connects to life. All of those things in one place. And now we want you to come along with us and join us. This is a podcast not just for my kids, but for everyone who loves to read, everyone who loves a good story, everyone who's a parent, everyone who's a teacher, everyone who just enjoys literature. This is a place to come. So come join us every Monday on A Dead Man's Books.